Welcome to the Underground.
Turn me up, bitch!
My Little Underground with Peter A.
It's My Little Underground. I'm Peter A. Make sure you're subscribed anywhere you get podcasts, and be sure to follow me on socials at MLU Pod. You can also support My Little Underground for as little as $1 a month. The link is in the description and on peteraradio.com. Today on the show, we have Alicia Gaines, who plays bass for the Chicago band Ganser. Their brand new album is out right now, Just Look at the Sky. We talked about black representation in rock music, diversity in concert bills, legendary bass players, and so much more right here on My Little Underground. Thank you for coming on, My Little Underground. It's a pleasure to have you.
Oh, thanks.
And I took a gander at your Twitter bio, and it was very interesting because you said you're essentially Niles from Frasier. And I'm a big Frasier fan.
Yeah. I just kind of like to try to be that kind of neutral, stoic presence that, just kind of has a freak out every once in a while.
Yeah. For me, I definitely relate to Niles a lot because, I'm a very romantic person. And it's so cool to see that because everyone wants their Daphne. And that's all we ever look for, at least for me. I think it's so cool that someone like Niles cares about something so much, which is great.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And I think, it kind of works too with like Nadia being a little bit more of an extrovert, the other vocalist in our band, because we can kind of just play like, I posted like those 70s stop motion Christmas movies. There was one that had Heat Miser and Cold Miser, and it's like we're just kind of two sides of the same coin, if you know what I mean. So
yeah, tell me about your power beer, your People Power beer.
Oh, that was something fun. Yeah, they approached me. This is like a series of beers that any microbrewery can do, where they just have to pledge a certain amount of money to the ACLU. So they approached me because, I think they had seen some of my design work with the band, but also my day job. I do like art direction for packaging. So it was just a really natural kind of team up, but stuff's strong. Had some yesterday.
Did you do the art direction for the new Ganser album?
Yeah, I did. I tend to, the way I describe it is I do all the design for us and all the editing, but it really is a team effort because, I present several options to the band and really they choose. So I just serve up, the potentials. But yeah, it was really nice to have this record come across with a cover that was so simple because I think a lot of people forget that your album cover has to work like on a full size vinyl, but it also has to work like on Spotify, So I figured like let's just pick a color and run with it.
No, this yellow works so well. I just had to get the physical version because I like the cover a lot.
Thanks. Yeah, and it worked out. The photo just happened to be something that our photographer who takes all the band photos, she just had that like in her Instagram feed. So I was like, hey, can we just license that? And she was like, go for it. So.
Yeah, and the G, the Ganser G is dope. Yeah, this is really cool.
Thanks.
I love it.
I always liked like late 90s album covers, like Blur records and stuff, and I don't know, I just always wanted to have like a logo that you could put on a drum head or something,
Yeah, that's cool. And then looking at the back, I'm literally looking at the CD right now. And there's a nice picture of a sky and all the track the track list is like on the water of the picture of the sky and the ocean. It's really cool. I like that. I like how it comes together.
Yeah, I figured save the messy part for the back, right?
yeah, that's true. So let me ask you this. Aren't you kind of exhausted from trying to, constantly trying to explain or normalize black people, especially black women that play rock music?
Yeah, I'm pretty tired. I'm pretty over it. I know that it's new for a lot of people, but I think it's just something that we have to kind of tackle really delicately. I think when we were really early as a band, we just thought we would put the music out there, and if it was good, we would get, more opportunities. If it was bad, we wouldn't get those opportunities, but that's not really how things work. So, I think we've had to be a little bit more outspoken with this record and just kind of moving forward now that, touring isn't a thing. I think just sitting back myself, I was talking to Pom Pom Squad about this too. A couple other
The
folks, like,
homie, I love her.
yeah, great, great. Yeah, we were talking about how, like, now that you have like a minute to like sit and think, there's just a lot of stuff where you're like, wait a minute, like I normalized a lot because we were just trying to move so fast, like there's a show every month. We're trying to record an album. Like you just don't question stuff as much, and I think this time period in a lot of ways is let people have time to kind of question why certain things are normal, and kind of just go from there how they're going to approach things from now on.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of people's lack of understanding of history. There's Sister Rosetta Tharpe, and then now we have Brittany Howard, and there's Yola. There's so many. It's
Big
there, but
Tony.
just
Yeah.
what? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean it's something that has to constantly be challenged. I think that's why like there was that kerfuffle with the idols and their like enemy article last week. But they said something. I'm paraphrasing, but like something to the effect of like we have to like get little black girls to listen to rock music so that we can have them, so that we can tour with them. And it wasn't just us. There was a lot of people just going like, we exist. We're out here. We out here.
yeah, exactly. So, talk to me about some of the festivals you've been to where you were the only black woman.
Yeah. So I think one of those was definitely Riot Fest. That was one where the amazing experience, like great people and all that. But it was definitely something where when you looked at the roster, um, it was something where like out of like 85 bands, it was just us and one other group. It was actually one of like the legacy acts, Pauline Black from the Selector. I think it was just her and I out of the entire like 85 band bill. So it's like, okay, so you either have to be like OG, like rock star, or the one challenger. So it's a lot of pressure, definitely. And like it also makes you weirdly visible too, and this comes into like shows in general. People will maybe after a show or just generally around town here, they might not necessarily recognize some of my bandmates before they recognize me, and it took me a minute to like explain to Nadia, I'm like, that's not a good thing, it's just because I'm like rare, that I'm slightly more memorable. Like, it's like,
Yeah, I'm laughing, but it's not funny, but it's like wow, you know what I mean? The situation.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just constantly like being in situations where you're just doing the nod with the other one black person in the room.
Yep,
Yeah.
I've been there just as a fan. Going to certain shows, especially on the DIY scene, and then you literally run into somebody else that looks like you. And like they're like, "What? Oh, black people come here too? What?" It's for me as a fan going to shows. At least over the last like couple of years or so, I've been literally like trying to be more aware that maybe why should I go to this show? There's so many people that don't look like me, and it's kind of uncomfortable. Like so, for a while, I haven't been going to a whole lot of shows because I just don't want to sit through another all white or mostly white bill. Have you ever experienced that? Just as a music fan, not as a performer.
Yeah, I mean, it can definitely be something that can be very intimidating. I remember this was like maybe, oh gosh, like probably like 8 years ago. Nadia and I went to go see. The bill was Red Fang, Dillinger Escape Plan, and then Mastodon. And you can imagine like how what that crowd would look like.
Yeah,
And that was just, it affects all of your decisions. I mean, like there are certain shows where like I just won't try to go up front to the pit because it's just, a whole bunch of dudes that are gonna like clobber me into like next Monday. So I think it definitely, I don't think people see how it affects us, when there is that lack of diversity in a scene, but I think hopefully people are starting to listen, to our lived experiences and how that affects things.
does a lack of diversity within the music scene kind of deter you or demotivate you from going to shows and playing to shows at all?
That's a good question. I think it it has kind of affected how we approach the idea of success, perhaps, and what that looks like for us. It is something where, especially when it comes around issues of like being asked to be support on tours and stuff like that, right before everything went all to shit. We were supposed to play South by Southwest, and then we were going to do support tours with a band called Control Top.
I love
And
them.
yeah, they're great. So we were supposed to see, okay, it's so freaking heartbreaking. We were supposed to do South by, and then we were supposed to do like a week with Control Top, and then we were supposed to do a week with Algiers.
Oh man.
And I think it's very telling that our very those are going to be our very like first support tours. And I think it's very telling that it's those two bands with the makeups that both of those bands have. You know, one being overwhelmingly LGBTQ, one, being known as a quote unquote, like as a black band, even though the band is not majority black, but you know how that goes. I think it's just very telling. So I think for us, it's sort of like, when other people get like support tours and stuff, it's like, well, the whole process of like, the booking agents have to think that we can play with them. Because I've heard that other bands of women say like, yeah, I was finding out that they were only pitching me to bands of other women. Like you just wouldn't even get put in the pool of consideration. So I think for us, it's like knowing that that's how that is and knowing that that's out of your control. Hopefully it gets better, but in the moment, we are where we are. You have to figure out, how do you define success? Like, what do it's not going to be by other people's approval because, the gatekeepers don't look like you. And it's not like, it's a meritocracy.
What are some of the most diverse shows you've played and attended?
Oh, that's a really good question. That's a really good question. I well, let me see. You know, there is actually like if we're talking like DIY, like there is a festival that happens every year in Chicago. We played it this year in January called Ian's Party. And essentially what Ian's Party is there's a neighborhood that has a couple of clubs like all kind of in the same space, like walking area. And so they'll just like book everyone in Chicago between these like two or three different venues, and then you just kind of run between them. They do a really good job of being representative of the Chicago DIY scene because, you know, anyone's DIY scene, you think of like garage band kind of stuff, garage rock. But honestly,
Oh
like
yeah.
there's so much like DIY hip hop in Chicago. I just don't understand why it's not treated with the same, reverence in a DIY kind of fashion. I don't know if it's because, I don't know, folks think that that's too outside of like the idea of DIY, but honestly, like some of the people in Chicago that do hip hop, like they hustle so hard. Like they have the DIY ethos like in spades.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because here in New York, I've been to a lot of DIY shows, but like in two different worlds. Like one has a lot more like indie rock stuff, which I like as well, and the crowd and the bands are totally different. But then I went to a DIY hip hop show, and it was just two completely different worlds. But it doesn't really have to be because you're both artists trying to strive for the same thing, just to kind of exist. And it's so crazy how segregated a lot of DIY music spaces are, which is sort of kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's very strange to, for example, there's this band out of Chicago that are, kind of like local legends called Ono. And they do like experimental avant-garde, I would say. They originally formed in the 80s, but they reformed recently with some kids. But I'm talking about like two black guys that are, senior, like maybe I have no idea how old they are, but they put on an amazing show and they talk about, serving in the Vietnam War and like all these crazy topics and all these crazy things about being black and gay in the 70s. And it's so funny to like look at the audience and it's just a whole bunch of like white indie rock kids, like that, like, the type that would be like on the indie heads like subreddit, it's just so strange.
That's great. I think if you ever, do a show in New York, I think the most diverse pool, at least from an attendance standpoint, is going to an Ava Luna show or a Gemma show. That's the most like black people I've seen at one show in New York since going to shows in New York. It's unbelievable. And that kind of like made me want to like go to shows again, being in that kind of environment. Like, okay, there's people that look like me here. I feel comfortable.
Yeah, for sure. I don't understand why people don't explore it as much. I mean, I would love to see something like that. New York is just always just such a it's just such a whirlwind. We went to New York off of our first record. We actually had the unique opportunity to play it twice. We like played it, then like went like more northeast, and then came back to New York and played another New York show. But it almost feels like you're just getting like dropped into like a different universe when you're in New York. We played like Alphaville, and then we played Saint Vitus, and it was like night and day.
Yeah, it definitely is. Two different worlds in the same borough.
Yeah, for sure.
Tell me more about the Ganser Algiers show. I think that would have been a great statement. Like, black people are here to rock. Pay attention to us. Like, how did that come together?
Yeah. So I think it came about because I think, I can only speculate that Algiers have gone through similar things to us in terms of, who's listening to them, what they even get categorized, like their music's genre, I'm sure is something that's like has been a pain in their neck, but maybe I'm wrong, but I have a feeling it's something like that. And Nadia and I actually first saw them, we were taking a vacation and we went to Berlin, and they just happened to be playing, and we wanted to of course go to a show in Berlin, so we just like went to their show and then like fell in love with them. And then randomly, when we were on that same tour that we went to New York, we played Atlanta, where they're from, or at least one of them lives there. And he secretly attended our show. Like, he didn't introduce himself. I think he was kind of like scoping us out, which is kind of like badass and old school, just to like go check out a band that you maybe want to have as tour support and like not introduce yourself. And yeah, that's kind of how it came around. He got in touch after the show saying that he liked us. And that was in like 2018. So it took a while for it to come together, but yeah, it was supposed to be the spring.
I think the best description I've heard of Algiers, especially when it comes to genre, has to be by default gospel punk. I think that's the best way to describe them, because that's what I hear when I listen to them.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's too reductive to try to kind of. I've seen people try to describe them as like R&B, and I'm like, no,
dude.
No.
Oh my goodness! Every time when black people sing, yep, R&B. That's you.
Yeah, it's really strange. I mean, we have to like do some pretty interesting things around like, I completely understand like until like you see us in person, it's hard. Maybe people don't notice that there's two vocalists, that trade off on songs, but if we're sound checking and the sound person, most of the time they have no idea who you are. You're just walking in there cold. They assume that Nadia is the lead singer and assume that I'm some kind of like backup. So we literally have a script when we walk in the door that's just sort of like, we need to be at the same volume level. Like a little bit of reverb, not full cocktail twins, but we have like a script to make sure that they know that like, yes, the black woman that's in the band is also a lead singer. It's insane.
I think that should be your Twitter bio. Not too much cocktail twins. Just a little reverb.
Just perfect. A little bit.
Are you a fan of cocktail twins?
I just don't know what the hell they're saying. I mean, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I don't know. I have a hard time with music where the edges are like so smooth, like they went with sandpaper over the edges of everything, like the different layers of like sandpaper until like it's like the smoothest of surfaces, the entire record. I don't know. How about you?
Yes, I'm a big fan because it's not what is said, it's how it's said.
Okay, I got you there. Yeah, I agree with you there.
It's exactly what it is. Mm-hmm. It's not sing along. It's just listen and take it all in. Yep,
totally.
It's just a feeling. That's all it is, and I love that.
they are one of the bands though where it's like it's unmistakable. Like when one of their songs comes on, like I don't think you're gonna mistake them from anybody else, you know?
Nope, you
Yeah.
aren't. That's one of the reasons why I love them so much, and
Oh yeah, totally.
extremely, extremely, extremely influential.
Yeah, yeah. I wish more people would take that I don't know, a page out of their book. Yeah, page out of their book and just sort of like run at your own idiosyncratic like interests. Like I don't know. I just don't want another band where people want to sound like somebody else. You know, like those things were fun, but somebody said recently that it was essentially the same thing as like being like a Civil War reenactor. If you try to like make a band that sounds like Joy Division or sounds like Nick Cave, it's like okay, cool, but like that we already did that one. Like that one happened, you know. Like go make up your own thing that like people are gonna try to copy in 20 years.
Yeah, you want people to copy off Ganser in a couple of years or 20,
Oh
30 years.
boy.
Why
Oh,
not?
we had the craziest thing happen. Shoot, I'm like blanking on the name of the band, but somebody covered us for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and I will tell you, there's nothing more wild than the first time you hear somebody do a cover of one of your songs.
Wow. Second
Yeah.
album in and someone is already covering your stuff.
Yeah, it was really really cool. I mean, we were insanely flattered. But it definitely like, your palms instantly go sweaty. It's just like, "Oh god, I forgot we put stuff out in the world and it might come back to us."
Oh man. Oh my goodness. For better or worse, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the band was called Grocer. I wanted to make sure that I got that out there, but yeah, I mean it was super cool.
What song did they cover?
They covered Avoidance off of our first record.
Okay.
Which I think, yeah, that if I was gonna pick covers, that was probably like an easy one to like know what the hell Charlie's doing on guitar, because normally he's pretty abstract. I don't think
Hmm.
you could like tab that out.
How has Bandcamp Fridays helped Ganser at all?
uh, I think we're only like sane and in one piece because of them. Um, we sold out of the first run of the record like 5 or 6 days after it was out, and we did some exclusive merch that partially benefited the Chicago Bond Fund, so we've been able to do some fundraising there, also some like trans law center stuff to help out over there, and we've been able to do that comfortably while at the same time kind of keeping ourselves afloat, because I think a lot of people don't realize that with a band there's a lot of like floating costs, like one of the funny things is that so we were supposed to go to South by and all these support tours, and we bit the bullet and bought a van. So I guess like directly how has Bandcamp helped us? It's helping to pay for our van.
More than just gas money, the actual van. That's awesome.
Yeah, totally.
So, will you continue to support, organizations like the Chicago Community Bail Fund and Greater Chicago Food Depository? Is that right?
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
will you continue to support them even after Bandcamp stops doing what they're doing now? I think they're going to
Yeah.
do it for the foreseeable future. That's my prediction because it's working out so well. But just
Mhm.
like down the line, will you continue to be a supporter of these groups?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for us, it's about finding opportunities to do stuff like that. Obviously, we were working on the ramp up to an album coming out, so doing that while pre-selling records, it's really nice if you can like take $2 off of each sale and put it towards something. I think if we were to do something now, it would be something like if there was some place that wanted to, I don't know, have like a live stream benefit, something like that. I think that that would be really cool if there was the right venue that wanted to do it, do it correct, not have people like just playing acoustics from their bedroom. But yeah, we would totally be down for something like that since, now the record's out and I don't think we'd be able to like raise as much as, when before it came out.
I want to talk to you about a piece of a Bandcamp blurb about your album that I thought really stuck out to me. It said, "These songs chart inner monologues of emphatic confusion." I think that's fucking amazing. So, yeah, I think that's definitely true. I definitely do feel that. Like, I feel like self-reflecting every time I listen to your music.
Yeah, I think it partially comes out of how we work and like who we are. Normally something starts with like Nadia coming to me or me going to Nadia and saying something like, "Do you ever feel like X, Y, or Z?" Like a good example would be um like emergency equipment and exits was me going like, yeah, you know that like feeling where like it could be the most ideal situation in the world, like literally like it could be your own birthday party and you just want to run screaming, like you don't want to be there anymore. um
I've been
from,
there.
yeah, yeah, so it's just doing that and then turning to the group and going, "You too?" Like that's literally like the whole thing behind this band is just going, "You too?" And then they go, "Yeah," or they go, "I don't know what the hell you're talking about." But if they go, "Yeah," then it's like Nadia and I can trade some lyrics, and I think by doing that as well, sometimes Nadia writes lyrics that I then sing, or I write lyrics that Nadia sings, and they might be abstract to the point that maybe she doesn't really know what my intent was with the line, but she kind of takes it and does her own thing with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's kind of like, yeah, like I'm trying to think. I've thrown her some really weird stuff, like yeah, we just like totally have passed each other, just kind of like surreal lyrics, and then just go, I don't know, make it work. I don't know, have fun with it.
So as a bass player, what bassists or bass fronted acts do you study or listen to frequently?
I got a couple. I play fretless bass, and the reason I do that is because I really, really love Mick Karn from Japan. He's never someone that I would try to emulate because he's extremely talented. You know, he's kind of like on like that Jaco Pastorius kind of tilt in terms of like the intensity with which he plays, but I just love his bass lines. They're so fun in Japan, and I don't know if people can ever hear something like that, but I do love that kind of like slinky, new wavy kind of bass line sometimes. And that's why I play fretless. And then when I started playing bass, it was the Kims. It was Kim Deal and Kim Gordon. Those
My
were,
girls.
yeah. Those are two people that like if I were to ever meet them, I might just die, just collapse into a puddle.
Have you ever seen the Breeders live?
I did see them at Pitchfork, so it was like an outdoor festival gig, but I haven't seen them like in a club or a theater, and that I think would be like ideal.
I have, and it was
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, they played with Screaming Females. That
Oh,
was
perfect pairing.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Like Screaming Females put on like one of their best shows ever. But then the people in the crowd, some cared. I know I cared, but you could tell like the crowd was there for the Breeders, and it was at Terminal 5. It was an amazing show, and it was unreal. It was almost like a passing of the torch moment kind of thing. That's how I felt about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like those moments need to happen more, right? Like it's one of those things where it's like all the music that has ever existed is at our fingertips. So I think it really behooves everybody that's like in music, and I don't just mean the bands. I'm talking about like booking agents, the whole thing. It's like you better keep passing that torch down and not just kind of sit where you're at, because it just needs to keep doing that to perpetuate.
Yeah, and it's just that's like the simplest way to discover music because people are going there to see X band and they might discover Y band and that might become their new favorite band. It's that
Exactly.
simple. It's just that simple.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that that's kind of our goal when everything is over here is support, like tour support. That's I think you can hang out as a band doing your own touring out of a van and booking it yourself DIY, and then you get a booking agent, which helps a little bit, but honestly like being on tour support is like that's my light at the end of the tunnel of all of this at the end of quarantine.
Yeah. Do you listen to any of those bass and drum pairing groups like Death from Above, Lightning Bolts, and Royal Blood, stuff like that?
I do like Lightning Bolt. I think for me, I don't know if I want like a little bit more color, but I do like bands that emphasize percussion a lot. Like we played a show with the OCs,
Wow.
couple and that was like our first theater show. So like big ups to them and John Dwyer for having us because we had never had personal contact with them. It was just like an offer that came through from the venue. So clearly like he does do that, and I've heard that OCs is really good about really not like rebooking. Like he'll just book different local bands in every town and then not reuse them. Like he's constantly looking for the new thing. And I think that kind of speaks to like their curiosity as like a music project, but man, watching those two drummers at the same time is like ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, I like what, John Dwyer is doing with Castleface. There's the OCs, then, Ty Segall, and then Fields, and you know what I mean? Like he's definitely has like his ear to the streets, as they would say. And I love that about them.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think I can't speculate, but I have a feeling that some artists, when they get to a certain size and, booking agents are putting potential tour support in front of them, that, it's already been through one layer, two layers, three layers of curation for you. And after a while, like, like the selections are not going to be super exciting. Like they're not going to be the unexpected. So I'm always love when I see like tours that are like, I don't know how the hell that came together, but I'm into it.
Yeah. Have you seen Lightning Bolt live?
I have not seen Lightning Bolt live, but I've seen live video of them. They're insane.
It is unbelievable. It is something that I can't unsee. It was, and I saw them in a movie theater. That
What?
was, yep, it was crazy. I didn't blink once. It was unreal.
Oh man, that's crazy.
And
That's
this
like a.
jazz band, yo, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
There was a jazz band I think you would definitely like that opened for them.
Oh,
Irreversible Entanglements.
okay. I'll definitely look that up.
Oh
I'm writing it
man,
down right now.
I'm gonna send you a link.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a must listen. You have to listen to it. But it was a weird and entertaining show in a movie theater. And yeah, it was crazy. It was unbelievable.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I love shows that are in strange settings. Like occasionally, they'll put on shows here at a cemetery, and it's really interesting because they'll
What?
set up the stage like in front of the mausoleum. Everybody sits on a lawn that is like not populated lawn, if you know what I mean. And they have security around to like keep people away from taking selfies with the graves or whatever. But just that change in scenery is just so nice. I don't know. I have it in the back of my mind that like if we do some kind of like film tape session somewhere where it's not a live stream, it's something that we can actually like, put together and edit together in the way that we, obsessively compulsively do. I would love to do one in a strange location because I don't think, this is the time to get away with it if you're going to do it. So like I would love to like do in like a movie theater or a bowling alley or something like that.
That happens a lot. I'm from Long Island here in New York,
Oh,
and
okay.
I know some punk bands that have played in bowling alleys. I haven't gotten like a straight answer if like if like the show was like if it worked for them,
Yeah.
but it's just another unique setting that yeah, it's great to have like a change of pace than to operate outside of the theater setting. It's kind of cool to see that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Have you ever heard of the band ESG?
I have.
Oh man, they're so incredible. And because, just thinking about like bass fronted, music, and
Oh,
I just think,
totally. And
yeah,
Black
they're
Women in Rock. I mean,
exactly.
come on.
Yeah. And not only that, like ESG is very like super influential.
Oh,
Um,
totally.
I don't think that a group like, let's say, what's that group? A big popular group from New York. Oh, LCD Sound System.
Oh,
Like a
yeah.
song like what's that? Daft Punk is playing in my house. Like
Oh, yeah.
that's
That is ESG.
ESG. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, for
Unbelievable.
sure.
Dude,
Absolutely.
unbelievable. So do you think you learned how to play bass when you were 21? Do you think that's too late or no?
I don't think it's too late, but I'll
Hmm.
caveat that by saying that I played other instruments earlier. So, like, I played piano when I was a really little kid and then picked up clarinet for, like, the school band. at like 9, and I played that until I was like 16, and that was like very like when you play clarinet or flute in an orchestra, it's basically like doing like guitar solos all the time, just like runs and whatnot. So like I got very good at like reading music and like all those fundamentals that you need, but I never wrote music. I was a good doer of it. But I was never like first chair. That was always like some girl that like had, probably like an Adderall problem and was a straight A student, which I was not. But um yeah, I quit that because I don't know, I just found it boring. And then when I picked up bass, I specifically did not learn the notes. I learned it by like you hum something to yourself in the shower, and then you go just try to go replicate it on this instrument. And they're made to make sense. So like anything you do that's not crazy, like it's like, oh, okay, this is why this instrument is laid out this way. But I still can read music. I still do that when I arrange keys and horns for us. But like, for the bass is like my safe place to just sort of like always kind of be an amateur, if that makes sense.
You're always learning.
Exactly. Always learning and not getting stuck in those kind of structures of like, well, it's not in this key or like, whatever.
Yeah, that's kind of like how hip hop formed, just breaking all the rules.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about music journalism. I mean, I do feel this way because I've seen it in a lot of publications. Guitar bands with black people and people of color, very, very underrepresented. So, what is
Mhm.
kind of your approach to that? Do you feel like you would like call out a publication, or do you just look towards finding um, media outlets that represent people of color?
Yeah, that's a tough question because I feel like it's really strange now looking that the album campaign is like, I mean, it's going on, but it's like all the premieres have happened, all the big reviews at this point have happened. It's very clear that like we got reviewed more in the UK, and the US kind of like the ones that you're thinking of did not write about us.
Mm.
Um, and so that's something that, again, it's kind of like what I was talking about in terms of like moving the needle in terms of like how you define success. I think for us, we found that just being very direct and on Twitter has helped a lot. Plus, like it's not like a super calculated thing. I'm just sitting at home working from home. But that's how, for example, I got that article on touring while black, was because I was just tweeting basically in response to a New York Times article that said 2020 is the year of the road trip unless you're black, and it was like this editorial about driving around in a car is a little bit more dangerous for us. So like, I was like, oh yeah, I guess that reminds me of like, all these like, I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh, we have this incident and then this happened and then yeah, like there's things that I do to keep myself safe, and like I think about different areas of the country differently, and especially like the in between, going in between cities is really like where the sticky parts are. So I was just kind of like tweeting that out, and then Louder in the UK said like, hey, do you want to write an article? So I think for us, it's like, well, there's certain gatekeepers where it's like, I don't know, write about us or don't write about us. Like, it's not really up to me. And you're just going to do what you're going to do. So I guess, like, maybe one of two things will happen. Either they'll never write about us, and that's fine. Or they'll write about us on the next album and then have to be like, oh, we just found them. They came out of nowhere, which they're gonna have to pretend like, they just like uncovered a rock and found us down there.
Yeah, you just been swept under the radar.
Yeah.
Here you are,
But
right
that's why
here.
it's like I want touring to be back, because it seems like this problem, I'm sure it still exists in the UK and in Europe, but it seems to be a little different, at least when it comes to bands from America. But I
Maybe
would
you'll
say
get
that's the
maybe
same
you'll
in
get a
South
most
Africa.
underrated. You'll get a most underrated by some publication.
You know
Down
what? Yeah, Underdog is fine. Like, I mean, Underdog I don't think is a label that's very like flattering, and it also presumes that people choose to be underdogs. Like there's it's implying a consent rather than just like they just don't get the same things. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. Like, I'd rather like have people get to know us over like a longer period of time and like come up like that as opposed to just like pop off or something like that. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. Because look at Sonic Youth. Their first
Yeah.
album was what, 1982?
Yeah.
And people talk about Daydream Nation and Goo a lot. 1987, 1990, 1990? Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, so they talk about those albums and they're like way later into their career. So Ganser has all the time in the world to kind of get people to pay attention to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think it's just sort of there's a certain like you know how there's a thing where like sharks have to keep swimming or else they'll die or like like I think for us I think the thing that we're constantly negotiating is like playing the long game for sure, but then also demanding things at certain points that we should be getting, because I think you could be the most talented musicians in the world. If you have to book every single one of your own tours and sleep on floors and like, be at that level for like 10 years, like that's asking a lot of people. As opposed to, you release an album, you get good reviews, then you get a support slot tour, then you eventually become a headliner, and it just becomes a little bit easier for you, like it's or difficult in different ways, I guess is what I mean. Um, but for us it's a combination of like just making sure that we're getting supported at each step of this, and then also we're four very different people. Every band has people that are doing different things, and it's like I don't think one of us is like gonna go get married and have kids or something and leave, but bands have moments, and it's like we are currently in the band moment, and I think we definitely will be for some time. But you can only be so patient.
Yeah, and I think that, when shows come back, are you thinking like, okay, now this bill that I'm playing is mostly white. There's nothing really I can do about it, but are you just gonna play and just kind of like, um, I'm gonna try to break the mold. I'm gonna try to change the system from within. Do you feel that way or no?
I think that that's kind of all in progress right now. We obviously want to make sure that when we you know, get to somewhere higher up the mountain, that obviously based upon our experience, I would have a feeling that we would look back and reach out our hand to other people that are in our position. If I was a headliner today, our tour booking would look very different than a lot of other bands. Like we would be conscious of things that bands right now don't seem to be conscious of. I think right now it's about figuring out how we can get ourselves at least on that first step of that, and getting ourselves onto those support tours to get to see more folks, like how you were saying. Like that's a main way in which people, or one of the main ways in which people are exposed to new bands.
Yeah, and I think when people see themselves on stage, they're more likely to go see it, like we were talking about.
Hmm.
So I think when shows come back and you're going on these tours and you're playing all these shows, different people each night or each week or whatever, I have a feeling that you're going to see a lot more people that look like you because they're seeing themselves on
Yeah.
stage in the limelight. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think, the thing that I kind of came across this weekend just thinking about like all the stuff that's been happening with idols is that, you know, the for being treated like a rare unicorn, like people pretending that like black women are not in rock or whatever. So if I'm like such a rare unicorn, don't you think we should be getting booked more?
Come see the unicorn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like, okay, if I'm really rare, then doesn't that mean that we should be getting offers left and right, especially in this moment now that people are like being watched a little bit more closely.
Yeah, if I had a carnival and I had a unicorn there, that's my attraction. That's gonna
Yeah.
bring the tickets. That's gonna sell tickets.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it would be a champagne problem to have to worry about something right now like tokenism. I think that that's maybe a problem for us in the future,
Mm.
like if the offers do come in, if we are lucky enough to get offered something. I think that's something where, again, like if it's a band, like if it's Algiers or Control Top, those folks, I don't really question their motivations. But
Oh
there are
yeah.
certain bands where it's like, if the offer came through, there would be a little bit more scrutiny in terms of like, well, let's see if your heart is true.
Side note, this is totally random and out of the blue. So I'm looking again at the CD of Just Look at the Sky, and you put lyrics in the insert. I can't tell you what that means to me. That means so much to me. Like, this is why I buy physical music, so I'm not crazy for doing this.
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of fun designing the whole thing, so it was really nice to finally get those in the mail. But I always loved physical media and like the way in which, I don't know, I was in middle school in the early 2000s, so like if you can picture what some of my first big records are, it would be like that first self-titled Gorillaz record. It's like Bjork's Homogenic and Vespertine. It's like Kid A. It's like, everything's kind of around that time period. And like, if you think, I can still picture that physical artwork, and it did really help to have the lyrics included in that. But it sucks when people like don't consider the music packaging, because like, I mean, maybe I'm like biased because it's my day job is doing like package design, but like, I don't know, it's just such a nice little, like, it's like a gift box for the music, so like it deserves some thought and care.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I continue to buy physical music, because it's just that. It's a level of intimacy there. When you're reading the lyrics while you're listening to the album, and you're not distracted by tons of different apps and whatever. I think it's great to just kind of be connected to this one thing for 45 minutes or 30 minutes and just kind of get lost in it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, we always like hide stuff like within like the legal credits, and like, when we have done cassettes, we didn't do a cassette of this record, but we've done cassettes in the past, and I've always like hidden stuff on the inside of the J card, just stuff like that, because it's like, I don't know, those kind of Easter eggs are fun.
Yeah, exactly. So, Alicia, I want to thank you so much for coming on and talking about Ganser and bass playing and representation. So, where can people find Ganser and buy this lovely CD that I'm holding in my hand right now?
So you can find us all over the internet. Our usual name is typically the band name, Ganser, Ganser Band, as one word. Um, Bandcamp is a great place to get the record, but also this is the first one that is distributed internationally. So you could literally pick up this record in New Zealand if you want, which is pretty wild thinking about from quarantine. But yeah, thanks so much for having me, Peter. This has been great.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. Now you got a place where you can talk about Ganser. You don't have to worry about any publications or reviewing you. I'm right here. I'll support you.
Oh,
I'm not
thanks
as
so
big as
much, man.
them, but I'm here to support
No,
you guys.
honestly, like, this is better. It's better than like, the 80th time being asked like, so how did you guys meet? you know, I'd rather just have something like this. This has been
Just
awesome.
say you met on Tinder. That's it. That's all
Oh,
you gotta say.
perfect.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Alicia.
Thanks so much.